Right. This call is now being recorded. All right. So to start off with, thanks guys for introducing me. As Neha said, I am currently working with a UX team. We provide strategy, guidelines, and intervention to a global team of 60 plus UX designers, and we work hand in hand with Neha's team, who are our team of lead developers, which Neha manages. So moving on, this is the thing about design handoffs, which is the part where the designers, the UX people create something, they give it to the developers and say, make this, right? And that causes a lot of trouble. That causes a lot of discontent among people. So let's see how we can smoothen that from both sides. Next slide, please. Great. So why do UX people think that developers don't understand anything? It sounds rude, it sounds silly. It is true. A lot of time UX people are thinking that, yeah, why they don't understand anything? Because, look at Adil here, this guy. He's a frustrated UX designer. To him, basically a developer never thinks about users, just blindly follows the specs. I mean, ultimately you're making something for the user, right? So you should think about the user while developing things. Well, the UX designer thinks that, though they sort of forget that thinking about users is their job and it's a developer's job to build it. So, but yeah, some communication should be there. Next is UX designers think that developers complicate simple things with weird edge cases and jargon, talking about libraries and platforms and this and that. And well, the UX designer does not care. I designed something. Can you make it? I have a vision. Can you bring it to life? And well, the developers are talking about libraries. What weirdness is that? Why complicate it? Next, point 3, UX designers think that developers mess up the interactions and miss the whole purpose of the design. I mean, the designers had a vision. They made it to be like this and this for the user to feel like that and that. And the developers just probably mimicked something that was on the screen, but did not get the actual purpose of it. So yeah, these are some of the reasons why UX designers think that developers don't understand anything. Moving on to the next slide. Why do developers think UX designers don't understand anything? Which is just as much true. By the way, I've been a hardcore developer, full stack developer for more than 3 years. So been on the other side, I know it very well. And I've definitely have received designs and thought that, okay, this designer has no idea. They don't understand anything. So, I mean, look at Tenzing here. She is a frustrated developer. For her, the UX designer does not understand implementation challenges. I mean, just because you design something, that does not mean it is always feasible. That does not mean, it can be implemented with a simple flick of fingers. There are so many complicated, tiny things to consider. And that's the developer's job. But the UX designer does not understand that. And when you mention those complications, they're like, I don't care. Okay, that's bad. Number 2, the UX designer gives her weird designs without explaining anything. I mean, the UX designer gives them a set of screens. Sometimes they give them a prototype which has some animations and interactions. Very good, very fine. But when you make that, I mean, they don't explain anything else, right? They give you pixel measurements and stuff, and you can make it from there. They tell you exactly how it will look. And when you make that perfectly, exactly to the point how the design was done, then number 3, the UX designer will complain that, no, you did not get the point. This is not how it's supposed to be. I mean, we just developed exactly what you said. That happens. So, strangely, the previous 3 points and these 3 points, all of these are true. Because there are communication failures. Moving on to the next slide, let's talk about what communication failures are there. First, this is something that developers need to keep in mind. The whole subject of UX is not about how it looks. It's about how the app, the screen, the interface behaves, how it behaves with the user, how it makes the user feel. The whole looks part is there, but that's called visual design. That's not even called UX. That's like a tiny part of UX. So uh, I mean, a simple example of that, you would look at the bottom right corner. You have a spec document, you have a design and you have lots of pixel information, color information, detailed measurements. That tells you all about, for 90% developers, this is what a good design handout document is. In fact, for almost many UX designers, this is what a good handout document is. But at the end of the day, it's not, because this tells you how it looks. It stops telling you on how it behaves. When you give clickable prototype, that tells you some amount of how it behaves, but still it misses a lot of small points that complete the UX designer's vision. So, point 2, developers are not stupid. They understand context. Developers are very technical thinkers. They are logical thinkers. Yes, but do remember point 3, that it's not the developer's job to be user focused. It's not the developer's job to think of the user's emotions. The emotional thinking is supposed to be done by the UX person, but the developer does understand the context. So the UX thought, as point number 4, needs to translate the emotional thought, the user motivation, whatever the user UX designer thinking, that needs to translate into the developer's understanding that, okay, I'm building this because the user needs to do this. Otherwise, this will happen. This thought needs to translate through the handoff. How can that happen? Let's look at the next slide. So how can UX people ensure smoother handoffs for developers? So here we see a happy developer. Tenzing is happy. She's wearing a different shirt and has headphones on. Don't ask me why. That's the problem of the stock photo people. But, well, she can develop better because of what the UX designer did. What did they do? The UX designer presented the design with reasonings for their choices. Okay, this is one of the biggest gaps I have seen. UX designers take the design and send it to the developers and say, build this. There needs to be a phase where the developer and the UX designer sit together. If they're working remotely, share a screen and talk, and the UX designer needs to present the design to the developer. This presentation is important because the UX designer can explain their thoughts, right? This thoughts talks about what they want the user to feel, how they want the app to behave, what is the reason for a lot of their design choices. But that's not the end of it. This thought also needs to be well documented. Just a good presentation does not, the UX designer presents, the developer listens, and they're like, oh, I understand. But that's not the end of it. You need all of that information to be in context. You need that to be documented so that you can refer to it. For that, the UX designer provides a detailed interaction flow with notes. Now, this with notes, I could bold, I could underline, I could do everything because this is super important. Even now, most UX design handoffs don't contain behavior notes. Interaction notes are good start. So what are interaction notes? If you would go to the next slide, you would have an example of some interaction notes. So you see, these are the screens. These are rough wireframes. But for each interaction, for each button press, for each movement, you have detailed notes on how that movement is supposed to happen. There is a zoom in thing here that's not happening. Don't worry. But basically, the idea is you give detailed notes with your screen flows on what that flow means, what are the contingencies. If it does not happen this way, then what needs to be done? If this condition is that, then what needs to be done? And at this stage, the developer needs to understand those notes. And if anything they think, any edge case, any use case, any weird compatibility issue is missing, they need to go back to the designer and talk to them. I'll come to that later. Moving on to the next slide. Now, how can developers ensure smoother handoff for the UX person? Now, look at the UX guy. He is super surprised with the output because everything went well, which is rare. So what happened? Because the developer did a few things. One, the developer, during the UX presentation and during the whole design process, the developer reminded the UX designer of the complexities, of the what ifs. You don't need to talk in libraries and platforms, but you need to tell them that, hey, if the user does have this data, then we cannot show this data. Hey, if this thing is like this, then we cannot do that. Hey, there is this particular information that can be small, that can be big. All these small points which you have in your mind, but the UX designer might not always have in their mind. So do keep in touch with them. So you know what, I could probably summarize this whole talk by saying, hey, you know what, just keep in touch. But let me give you a bit more detail. The other point is something that I would repeat again. If I had one piece of advice to give you, that would be ask why. You receive the design, you don't understand something, ask why. You understand something, but you think it could have been better. The UX designer is not making the best choice. Go ahead and ask why. Because you know it's their job to think about the users. They might have some reason. Hey, in 10% cases, your idea might be better. Ask why. If your suggestion is better, then they would switch. So, and also asking why is better than actually just saying, hey, I think this should be done, because that's their domain. But if you ask why, they will have to explain it. They will need to look at it better. So moving on to the next slide. Communication tips and tricks for developers. So since my audience today is majorly developers, so I have one extra slide for developers, is one, do not accept designs until all interaction notes have been given. So those lots of notes and stuff you receive, you look at them and you see that some edge cases have been missed or some behavior is not properly documented. Go back to the designer, say, hey, what to do about this? You know, I will quickly jump to point 4, but okay, let me go on in sequence. So basically, go back to them, have them put in the notes, and then accept the design. Otherwise, do not accept the design, because it will of course come to bite you back if you accept it, and then while development, you'll have to make a choice. What are the tools? I just saw this thing. What are the tools? Most standard tools like Sketch, Axure, XD, all of them allow you to add comments, allow you to add notes. There are different ways to do that. As long as you ask the UX designer, hey, give me a version with notes, they will make a version which has all the pieces and all the text there. So number 2, don't start till you understand the notes. Now these notes are actually important. They tell you how the thing would behave. You would notice that many a times, if you just look at the design and start development, versus if you would look at the notes, understand them and start development, your development path will be different because you will understand the user context better. Number 3, if you get stuck anytime during the development process, during the understanding process, after the development process, but you get stuck, there is something that was not given in the design and you have to take a decision, please take my advice, don't take that decision. Avoid taking design decisions by yourself. I'm not saying you guys are bad designers. Almost all developers, particularly UI developers, have a good design sense. But the job of the UX guy is to understand the user's emotions, to think of their motivations, and that drives their design choices. So get back to the UX designer, ask them, hey, I'm stuck here. What should this behavior be? Ask them to add some notes, right? Do it as many times as required. So in my team, Neha will tell you, I encourage this very much. I have a completely open door policy, and they get stuck many a times. They give me a call. I explain, okay, this is like this. Many a times I'm surprised. Oh, I completely didn't think of this. So in this case, you do it like this. And I always tell them, because we want the user to feel like this, or else the user would be frustrated, blah, blah, blah. Number 4, for quick changes, ask for updated notes, not updated designs. Updating the designs take time. The UX designer should ultimately, once things are done, they should update the designs. But you are in the middle of development, right? You get stuck somewhere. Just ask them to update the note, or send you a message, an email with the updated note, whatever it is. Don't ask to update the design, because in that case, what will happen? The UX designer will tell you, okay, I will update the designs. For the next 3 days, your development is stuck. Don't do that. Just ask them to update the note and go according to that. And 5, there are other tools than just interaction notes. Now, these tools are very new. Even, bleeding edge folks like Google and Amazon are just slowly developing them. They are like design tokens. Design tokens are old though. They're like 3-4 years old. Motion specs are quite new. Responsive prototypes are more or less, again, 2-3 years new. But honestly, in this field, anything in the field of UX, and particularly handoffs, anything less than 5 years old is actually pretty new. So this, you need to sit with your designer or designers and explore these new trending mechanisms. Many a times your UX designer would also not know. It will be new for them also. So explore these. See, hey, can we make motion spec documents? Can we implement design tokens? Can you do responsive prototypes? What other techniques we can adopt? Can you give me the notes in a separate layer? Can there be an overlay which I can apply on blah blah blah? But sit down with them and talk about how to improve the handoffs better, so that you understand each piece of the designer's vision better. So these are the points that I had. And in the next slide, there is some further reading for this. It mostly expands and adds a few more things about this thing. It talks about the tools and stuff. So I'm sure Neha will make these links available for you. And well, that's about it. So thank you guys. Now I will take questions.
Great, Arthur. Thank you so much. Hello? Yeah, go ahead.
Do we have any version control to see the difference between, what is happening between the developers, and how is the, designs transforming? Is there any good tool?
Yeah. So Sketch Cloud has version controls. Adobe XD has version controls, and there is JIT for designers, like Nisha has just updated. And InVision, yes, InVision also. Most of the design tools have some form of version controls, but mostly in their cloud, these things. If you just keep updating your file locally and share the images, at that level, you won't have version control. So it is best to use a version control system. If that is what you do, then use a JIT for designers or something. But yeah, keep a version control system, and encourage your UX designers that every time they update the design, to just add the version number and increment it on top of the image if they're just doing images.
Sure. So what do you recommend based on your experience?
What do I recommend for what? For version control?
Yes. Yeah, because you have a good experience of leading so many designers and then developers.
Yes. So honestly, different teams have different paradigms. So as long as you are sticking with one particular app, if you are using InVision, stick to InVision. If you're using Sketch Cloud, stick to Sketch Cloud. If you're using Figma, stick to Figma. But remember, the moment you change your apps, you change your method, your versioning will be lost. So even my recommendation is find one good handoff app or handoff mechanism that works for you. It could be Figma's this thing. It could be Sketch Cloud. It could be XD. It could be InVision. I would very much recommend Git for designers because it handles the version control all by itself. So yeah, basically don't switch, because every time you switch, remember all your versionings will rid of everything.
So Git
I
Git designers is it from Simply?
go ahead. I did not understand.
So Git for designer, is that Microsoft Git or is it, I see in the internet, I see
Yes.
what versions.simplify.io. Is that the one you're saying? Git for
Check.
designers. Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible. Atul, can you
Yes,
get
you
the
are
question?
audible.
Yeah,
Atul?
Git. I just wanted to know the URL of that, Git for designers. Is it from the Git repository that where we use the coders use? GitHub,
Probably.
Right. Right.
GitHub, or is it from someone else?
Right. So I will ask Nisha or somebody from my team. By the way, guys, Nisha is also from my team. She's also one of our UX leads, and she's also very well versed in these things. I would ask one of the folks from my team to drop a URL here.
Yes. So
And
I think, yes, it's the same one. It's the versions one. And in fact, Git for versions, I mean, versions for Git, it works little differently. It works as similar to how Git works for dev. And if you see Sketch, it works quite differently there. And Adobe XD also, it works very differently. So these are, I mean, their working is very different, but yeah, they are looking at same thing, version control for designers. Uh, so yes.
Fantastic. Yeah, thank you. Very good topic. And I think I can see that, I mean, the way you actually communicated looks like DevOps was a problem. Now, yeah, design development is also a problem. And thank you for, making it so pleasant to understand this problem.
you're welcome. You're
Wow.
welcome. Thank you so
Great.
much. So I got a question from Neha. Is what do I mean by interaction notes? Is it style guide? The answer is no, it's not style guide. The style guide is actually exists mostly for the designers to get their styling basics from the branding and all the information, the standards of the company. While interaction notes is for each design. When if it's a multi-page design, then it is part of the flow and flow diagram. If it is a single page design, then it is a separate document with the design pasted in the middle and lots of comments on here and outside with multiple behavioral notes about, because the design is, as I said, the design is probably like 15% of the whole UX vision. The vision is, when the user does this, it will do this. When this thing happens, this particular behavior will be there. Not all of those can be prototyped. Not all of those behaviors can be prototyped. They need to be noted down. Very often the UX designer does think that, hey, this is pretty obvious. I mean, anybody would understand this. Anybody would not. Particularly the developers need it documented. So you might as well note down your full vision. Yes, it requires a bit of writing. Yes, it is slightly more tedious than just handing off the image. But trust me, that documentation helps everybody. And later on, both of you can refer to that documentation and come to a point that, yeah, okay, this behavior is mentioned, so it needs to be developed.
Orko, thank you for the answer. I have a follow-up question on the same. So you said that the interaction notes should get updated on the design which the UX team is going to give to the developers. which actually become the part of the documentation. So in our dev community, documentation is very important with the point of view of the language we are using. Now, having said that, does designer also have the same design language? First question. And second, do every designer understand that they have to do it, or for them it would be like a surprise? Oh shit, we have to do this now, and how should we do it?
Yeah.
So is it an industry thing, or is it just a process you actually implemented and you saw that yes, it's successful and we should do it?
So I will say it varies. I would say hardly less than 30% of the top percent of the design firms, or less than 30% of design teams follow it. More, at least 50% of the best, the top end design teams, they do give some sort of interaction notes, but less than 30% do detailed set of notes. But at least 10% in the industry are actually doing it and getting very good results. Some of the links that I have shared will give you some case studies where such notes have been very helpful, and different formats for those notes. So yes, it is an industry practice. It is only slowly being taken up, and it is very much a recommendation of mine. But yes, if you go and tell your UX designer, hey, look at this article, this talks about interaction notes, can you give us that? Your UX designer is more than 80% chance they would say, huh, I did not know this. Okay, I have to write a lot. And you'll have to say, yes, you'll have to write a bit. But this is good for you and good for me, and it's good for documentation.
Hi, Arko. Aman this side. I have a question. Hello? Hello?
Yeah, man, go ahead.
Yeah.
Sometimes there is a situation like if a design is made for a mobile version and for desktop version. So there is a quite lot of difference between the two. They are not as per responsive as we developers think that changing the position and it might work. So how do we go about it? So should we make it differently, or should we ask the designer to basically make it more responsive, or like that? Hello?
Aman,
Yeah.
I could not clearly understand the question. I think either it's my network or
Okay.
the voice got
Okay.
broken. Would you
I'll just repeat the question. Yeah,
Yes.
so sometimes a situation happens that when a designer designs a particular design for mobile as well as for desktop, right? Hello?
Yes.
Yeah. So there is a lot of
Yes.
difference when we design a particular responsive design. So when we develop
Yeah.
a responsive design, so we just basically
Yes.
make a flex row in desktop and flex column in mobile, suppose like that. But
Uh-huh.
the designs are not
Uh-huh.
so similar uh, with respect to the responsiveness. So how do we go about it? Should we
Mm-hmm.
convince the designer to change it, or should we basically make different UIs for desktop and mobile?
So this is always a case by case basis. You have to design. It is if the designer can create a set of designs which very easily translate using flex columns, then it is actually their credit, and then you can do it using either flex columns or just normal, just plain floating items. I mean, we used to do it with plain floating items, but yes, uh, it is the designer's job to make sure that that works. And if you see that it cannot be done using flex columns the way they are saying, then let the designers know that, we are going to build a completely different UI for mobile, and you have freedom to, you don't need to just flex the same content. You can design it, you can change the layout in some other ways if you want. Then probably the designers would basically give you different designs altogether. which are
Yeah,
much more optimized for mobile.
yeah, because making two designs for the same particular website tampers the performance of the website also.
Again, it's on a case by case basis. Sometimes with flex columns and handles, it actually scales between mobile, tablet, and desktop very nicely. But that
Yeah.
is, I would say, 30% of times.
Okay.
Other 70% of times, it does not scale well. It looks bad in either desktop or it looks bad in mobile. In those times, put your foot down and say, no, let's do two independent UIs depending upon the whichever platform is being asked for. We will deliver that stream. I mean, that's what LinkedIn has done. That's what. But on the other hand, there are many big sites. You'll see it's a good mix. Some of them have completely different UIs for mobile and desktop, and some of them do use a flex. Facebook recently shifted to a flex design
Yeah.
very recently. So yeah, so it's always on a case by case basis.
Okay.
Also,
Thank you.
it will
And
be worthwhile if you discuss this with the designer also, how the flex works. Probably for us, because we have some background on the technical end, so it's easier for understand how flex works. But if you could help them understand how flex will solve the problem, then probably designers will also be able to understand okay, if I give them this way, it will be easier for the dev as well. So I think even Orco covered that in the open door policy and all that. You can discuss these things together.
Okay, sure.
Aman, what Nisha and Orko just mentioned, adding on that, as a developer, and I work very closely with UX folks, worked and still working. We developers assume that designer knows everything, but as Nisha mentioned, that Orko and Nisha is coming from the tech background, so they understand flex and everything, but designer doesn't. For them, their world is only the sketch or the design tool and making things beautiful, so they don't understand. And you, as a developers, we should go and educate them that if you are going to give us this design, performance issue would be there, and why the performance issue would be there. Now I feel that there are a lot of designs, the design pattern nowadays which is in industry, they are mostly now cross browser supported, but in the past, designer doesn't understand that if they are going to have like drop shadow or something else, the cross browser issues will come. At that time, it is very important to also highlight them the design they are making, how the cross browsers issues will come. So never hesitate to go back to your designers, educate them. It is very important when you are working in collaboration. Okay.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Because there are questions in the chat, can you please pick those?
Okay, sure.
I have one question. Uh,
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a generic questions. How you guys performing a testing from the UX and because if it is manually like 10 to 12 pages, it's good to advise we can able to perform a manual testing. But in our application, it's like 100 pages. We having a generic component and we using the same component in different combination in different pages. So is there a way to automate this UX testing for every build? We can able to run some script to have the UX specification testing.
Orko, can I take this question?
Yes, please. Yeah, this is completely automated.
Yeah. So for the automation, so our testing is mostly automated. We have like a lot of stuff going on. For the automation of UX, yes, our testing team has automated. They have a Gallon framework. Just look into that. It's pretty simple, I would say, for the testing people to understand how that works. And our team implemented the Gallon framework, which automate our UX testing. So whenever a new build is coming or any new component is coming, all they do is just run the Gallon framework script and it will give all the issues. And when we say the UX testing is all about the colors, the spacing, font size, font family, and everything. So this is how they are doing it. For the manual, they just do the smoke testing. They don't get into the very much detail for the manual. Most of our efforts goes in the automation only.
Neha, would you
Thanks.
also want to speak about the tokens? How that, just a quick one. I know it's a very long story, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so other thing what we do is we have design tokens. So what design token is, this is though Orco's field, but okay. So the design tokens are our like background color. So the background color, let me explain from the dev perspective, like CSS variables. So those are kind of our design tokens. So what designers do is when they are updating any design, what they do is our variables name remains same, the values get changed. And when it comes to the developers, we just update those value. The variable's name never get changed. And it actually gives the confidence to the developer that we haven't breaked anything. Only the variable value is getting updated. And with the testers also, the same thing happened. They have the design tokens and they just need to test against that. So they don't also need to go into the full-fledged testing and making, getting into the deep dive into those things. Design tokens are very important for the maintenance of, if you have the web application which has like a lot of UI stuff going on, a lot of changes are coming, plus you have themes and so on. Design tokens actually help the way Orco is implementing in our project with one of my developer. It is actually helping solving our lot of issues of maintenance basically.
Okay, if possible in this session, if you show a live demo of your applications and design tokens, what we're discussing, it will be helpful.
The only problem is our application is not open for the outside world, but I take that as a feedback. I definitely see that we need to show that how the UX, UI and testing whole flow is happening. We will definitely do it. What say Orko, Nisha?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay.
yes, we will do it. Ikas, can we move to the chat question and then we move to the
Probably I
synthetic?
see there are 3 questions. One is very general. From Sarthak, he says that are there any new job opportunities opening for freshers as a UI designer due to the COVID situation? So this is just a throw question. Neha, Arko or Nisha, a general question.
I already respond to that question that I cannot comment for the whole industry, but yes, due to COVID, many organizations as of now freeze their hiring, but there are few companies who are still hiring, so there is no harm in reaching to the company's HR or employees. How to reach? LinkedIn is the place, or go to the web company's career page. So that's it.
Yeah. Okay. So next question comes from Arun.
Also, now is a very good time. Sorry, guys. I
No,
just said
go
also
ahead.
now is a very good time to look at, for somebody who is still yet to get hired. Keep your eye out for remote work gigs. Pick them up. I mean, I freelanced for 5 years, and remote work gigs are a very good way while you're in between jobs.
Yeah, that works. Great. Okay. So next question comes from Arun. He's asking what is the actual time frame for a designer. Aman, just a second. I'm just in between a question. I'll just give you a moment. Arun, question from Arun is what is the actual time frame a designer should take for an example, a mobile app UI design for an e-commerce industry? Arko?
I will take this up, and the answer is very simple. The answer is minimum 3 to 4 days, maximum 3 to 4 months. It is that much variable depending on the complexity of the designs, depending on the complexity of the cases. It is very much on a case by case basis. But honestly, if you give them and say, hey, make me a mobile app or make me an e-commerce design, and you have 1 day, you will get paper sketches. If you give them 2 days, you will probably have some wireframe, and they will tell you, I have no research, by the way. All of these are completely speculative. These are not based on user data. If you give them 3 weeks, they will ask you for some budget, and they will do some user research. They will do some secondary research if they can, and then they will make you some good wireframes. If you give them 2 months, they will do solid user research. They will do nice flow diagrams. They will do journey mappings, this, that, and you will have wireframes which are probably user tested, and you know that the app is going to work. So that's how the job of the UX designer scales, the more scope and time that you give them.
Okay, great. So we have next question from Soumya. She says, apart from dev design coordination, product team also closely works with designer. Even if a dev gives input related to implementation, does designer have to first work with product team to make changes as per the dev? I want to know what is the process, just some brief about it.
Very good question. So this actually, the answer has two variations. One variation is if you have a junior UX designer in your team, then please include the designer and sit with the product team and discuss the inputs. Basically, because the junior designer generally can't do the liaison work that is supposed to be done by a UX designer. But if you have a senior UX designer, their job is to be the island, the bridges between product team, between developers, between users. So yeah, if you have a senior UX designer, talk to your UX designer. They will talk to product team and make it happen.
Great. So thank you,
Yeah.
Arko, Nisha, and Neha for all the question and answers. Probably we are slightly late with our schedule. Probably
I
we
have
can.
one question. Can I ask?
Okay, probably this would be my probably last question. After that, you can all submit your questions on the chat, and we can
Or
take it
guys,
later on.
I can answer the questions in chat, and you can start setting up for Sanchita.
Yeah, that would be good.
Orko, is it possible for you to join Discord of JS Lovers, and there you can take this discussion? Because the chat could be, for the next talk, we might miss out the questions and answers during the flow. What do you think?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, I'm sending you the
lovely.
Discord link.
Can I go ahead with questions,
Definitely.
or we are shifting the topic?
Anup, you can ask the Anup, you can ask the question. This would be probably the last question for the Orko, and then any discussion with the Orko will move to Discord, and we will move to the second talk.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks, Ako, for a beautiful session. I'm coming from a bit different perspective or a background here. My product is currently a chatbot. It's based on a WhatsApp, so we don't have anything as a design for an app. But what I'm struggling with my UX people is they always cover a positive flow of the new feature that we are including, and negative flows never get covered. And I might be coming from a tech side to push them to include the negative flows, because when it comes to a development, we discover a few things inside a flow that this is not covered, this is not covered, this is not covered, and that creates a kind of a 11th hour working in terms of fixing the flows. So how can I address this process thing? If you have any suggestions on that.
Very good question. So Anup, I will tell you, firstly, this is a particular part of UX design. It's called conversational UX design.
Yep.
It has nothing to do with screen. It has nothing to do with anything. So here in flows, if you get a UX designer who has some experience or is good in, they do need to be a good UX writer also. So at this level, what you can do with the current UX designers you have is talk about them, talk about the flows before they start making the designs. Before they start making, you ask them that, hey, you're going to make the designs, give me a quick run through of the happy paths that you are talking. And you take the happy paths from them and then give them all the unhappy paths and say, okay, this is a blockage point, this is a blockage point. The user can just drop off here. The user can say no here. The user can say something that we don't understand here. And for all of these, please give us the copy for what the bot will reply back.
Okay.
And this needs to be an involved process as long as, so after a while, your UX designers will become more better conversational UX design, because it's a very new topic. Most UX designers are learning on the job. So you need to guide them.
Okay, understood. Thanks, Orko.
And I would add another thing, Anup. Probably you will get more insights for us with the second talk. Sanchita would be here to help you with that. Probably she's speaking on the Weiss UX. So as you mentioned that you're working on chatbots, so probably you will get more insights with that talk. So stay tuned. Probably
sure.
she would help you more on that. Sanchita, the floor is yours. Probably you can go ahead and share your screen and we can start with the second talk. So
Sure, sure.
guys,
Oh,
yeah,
thank you,
just
Vikas.
share your screen. So probably this is the voice UX she is about to speak about. So we'll be taking questions and all the stuff. She has to make the session more interactive to try to communicate as much as possible. She will let you know when you can speak about or when she wants your interaction. So yeah, let's go and hear what she has for us. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Vikas. I hope I'm audible and my screen is also visible.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. Yeah. So, hello everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you all for joining the session. So, a brief introduction about myself. I'm working as a consultant at Deloitte. I have close to 5 years of experience, but my profile has been a blend of quality assurance, both manual and automation, and as a UX designer. And currently in my organization, I'm working as a dual role for both as a QA automation and user experience designer. In my career, I got opportunity to serve most of the international clients, and out of my sheer interest, I started doing the designing part and have got opportunities to work there as well. Few of my achievements, I won the Megathon in 2019 for Deloitte, wherein I redesigned the internal Deloitte app. Also, I participated in few hackathons on Hacker Earth, wherein I got selected for the 2 rounds, and also got opportunity to speak at the design conference as well. So, since I was working on this voice UX part in the last like a couple of months, so wanted to share
Sorry,
my.
Sanchita, to stop you in between. You need to adjust your mic. It's like disturbance is coming.
Is it fine now?
Yeah, it's perfect now.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Sorry about that. Yeah, so just out of my interest, I wanted to share my experience, what I have learned in last couple of months when I was working on voice UX. It's pretty new topic for me as well, but I wanted to come out and share it with you guys what I have learned. So today's topic is about voice user experience, what exactly is invisible interface. And also before I just start, I just want to highlight that this session would be helpful to everyone, like irrespective of your current domain or even if expertise, even if you are a developer or a tester, as you know, this might give you a different perspective or a flavor from the user's perspective. And while when you are in your organization or you might get such opportunities, you can hit these points and make sure you can most out of it whenever you get such type of an opportunity. So I will try to make this session more interesting for everyone. So let's dive in. So today's agenda is mostly about what exactly is design experience, then how and what is design voice user experience, then moving on to components, voice formats and framework, and then a small demo. So I'm starting now. So as everyone is aware, we as humans have been evolved right from the Stone Age, moving on to the Industrial Revolution, coming into the machinery phase, then from machines to computers age, and now we have landed a step ahead, that is of artificial intelligence, wherein the information is all around. That is an experience age. We are experiencing everything even better now when we are in the pandemic stage now. So whenever there is a term named design comes into the picture, it is often the visual beautification of it to which we get attracted. But I think it's more of a thought process rather than just the beauty of it. Say the reason why I say is, let's take an example. I'm sure each one of us have gone through such type of a scenario which I'm going to describe. Say on your mobile application, you have you might have used Chrome or Safari, the browser, and opened any website over that. And imagine you are on the third page of that particular application. Now you want to come back to the dashboard of that application, that website. And somehow by clicking back navigation, you somehow land on the Chrome homepage rather than the website homepage. I'm sure each one of us has gone through. So this is a type of an experience a person is getting. Subconsciously, we are tracking it. Okay, oh, I wanted to go back onto the homepage of the website, how come I'm landing on the Chrome page? So what exactly is happening as an end users, we are getting exposed to certain experiences that are being programmed in our mind. And what if we convert those subconscious thoughts into the conscious activity, we can reap a career out of it. And so this is what I did for myself. So like, this is the experience. What I wanted to emphasize is not about just the beauty. It is a beauty, which is a good thing, but it's more of a thought process. Now, say for example, see, if you see this logo here, it's very common logo of the famous application. Any guesses, guys? You can unmute and tell.
Paytm.
Yeah, correct. That's right. Absolutely. So since this is a Paytm wallet, now my next question here is why it is called a wallet and why it is not called an account or a bank or a saving account altogether? Like, any answers, any guesses? Why it is called a wallet and
Wallet
not...
gives
Mhm.
wallet gives more of a visual representation rather than it being like an abstract idea.
Yeah, correct.
It is
Okay.
very close to physical money. They want to represent that.
Yeah, correct. Any other?
I think when you have a experience, which digital version of a very day-to-day user experience where you can conduct transactions without all the I wouldn't say bureaucracy, but all the processes that it takes to deal with a bank.
Correct. Absolutely. Yeah. So like wallet, as we all use in day-to-day our life, wallet is something which we make use of in a daily life. It is not like we don't keep 10 lakh rupees in a wallet and travel here and there. So the Paytm had very clear vision that this is being brought into the picture so that people can go ahead and utilize this wallet on the daily transactions, not for keeping it for the saving purpose or something sort of that. So like, this is one of the examples with respect to say the e-portal that we discussed. Now let's take a problem statement. Say suppose during this pandemic, we all are aware that migrants are being transferred to their original cities from where their people belong. And say we have a problem statement: in this hot, humid environment, we need to create a refrigerator for such people. So what kind of thoughts come into our head? Like, if we are suppose we have been given a problem statement, we have to create a refrigerator for such people. Ideally, what happens is, as soon as we hear about refrigerator, what comes into our mind is a fridge having a two sections. One is a freezer, the second is the main body, having electricity to connect through it, having a red color, fancy colors, and even more in this digital worlds, having some display as well. But we need to understand, we have to design it for the people who are traveling from one place to another. They don't have electricity, they don't have anything. So this type of idea might not help. So we need to dig deeper into it and understand why, what, and how of the problem. Probably it could be a simple box wherein they can keep it handy. It does not require any electricity or something. So like, my intention was to explain this is whether it is an electronic device or a digital platform, or it is a non-digital platform. Design experience is something which we as humans are facing every single day. And we need to emphasize more about why, what, and how. And as in and when, on this example, when I was asking you about why it is called a wallet and not an account, what exactly was happening in the back end is, like, we were creating a mental model in our head. We started emphasizing, okay, this is wallet, this represents as a wallet, what does wallet do? So there was some mental model that was being created in our head. And moreover, the design is mostly a subjective matter. It might have a different opinion for you and it might have a different opinion for me. So as a designers, we need to have a scalability to understand and see the different, be in the different hats and understand what exactly this could mean, just to cover this part. So this was about the design experience that I wanted to share with you all. Now, if I want to extend this experience and I would like you to walk through further, how humans can interact with a device. So voice user interface essentially is the ability to speak to devices, and its capability in return to understand and act upon the user's commands. In a very simple language, it not only introduces in a way, how people are interacting with the machines, but they also raise a bar for the quality of interaction, how you are having with it. So on the very practical note, it is for sure not possible to talk with a computer or any electronic device and get a feel of you are talking to a person like in daily world like we do. But of course, creating at least something similar to it would bring you more closer to more natural experiences out there. So moving on from here, there are three things which I feel as a component which are important to take care of while you are designing as a voice user experience, which are the underlying thing. So our first is like speed. What happens is, say suppose I'm speaking something, you are immediately calculating and understanding things what I'm trying to say. So we need to make sure whatever application we are trying to build, it should respond and talk with that speed and should have that intelligence to come up with asking questions when I'm throwing at it. Second is onboarding. So I'm not sure how many of you have gone through this app named Headspace. Is anyone aware of this app Headspace? It's about the meditation app.
Yep, I'm using it.
Yeah.
Did.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so due to this pandemic also, for those people who have not used, it's free now. What it is about is a meditation state. In this, the onboarding screens, if for the people who have already used, they might have seen there is a guy who is sitting on the table, on his chair, sorry, and having headphones, and he's in meditation pose, and there is a metro there is by passing. That guy is still there. There's a bird chirping around, that guy is still in that position. So what I mean to say here is, in that particular application, they have tried to convey their thought what exactly this onboarding, this particular application Headspace is going to do. No matter what comes in your life, you will not get disturbed when you are using this particular application. So how we can inculcate such type of onboarding processes in your voice applications when you are building it. So this is one of the second components which I feel is quite important. Third is for sure, now due to this pandemic that we are facing now, avoiding of fingers altogether in the world of social distancing. I think even today, like we are having discussion over the voice itself. So we need to make sure how exactly we can communicate good in terms of making the experience much better. And with increased artificial intelligence and machine learning, the day is not far, when voice navigation can form a part of design altogether. And through the development of natural language processing and speech recognitions, we now actually consider the speech recognition as one of the coolest things to implement in a product. So this was the components which I feel I wanted to share out with you all. Next comes the very important part, which is voice formats. So words matter more than ever, especially with the flavor of a tone. Words are important. Now, if you're not able to see me, you are only able to hear me, whatever I'm trying to convey it. Now, if my tone suddenly changes, if I go pale and I don't talk properly and I don't speak out, you also won't have interest to listen anything. So let's take an example here of an error message and gauge how its tone can be modulated in various scenarios. Now see, if an error message has occurred, let's take first example. We see here, it says, we apologize, but we are experiencing a problem. So now this statement is quite serious. This is a formal tone with a matter of fact, yeah, we are apologizing, but we are facing some problems. Now, such type of example is mostly encountered in your financial websites when you are unable to log in or you get a bad response from the server, something like that. Or maybe within your organization, when you try to access few pages or few portals and you don't get certain response, this is a sort of a serious conversation from where you get in the reply. Now let's move ahead and see the same version of the example, how we can quote it in some other format. It's like this: we are sorry, but we are experiencing a problem at our end. Now, this is a way step ahead than the first one, wherein it's a casual, serious, yet with a matter of fact that we are having problem, but at our end. Mostly you would see such type of experiences in the traveling websites like Clear Trip, Make My Trip, something like this. Now, if we take on the third example with the same error message, it says, oops, we are sorry, we are experiencing a problem on our side. Now, this type of mostly such type of error messages are thrown on e-commerce websites or even on Google Pay. If you might have used when your transaction has done properly or you fail to do, you get such type of errors, or while making use of any of the playing games online. So we need to really need to take care of such things while we are creating an invisible interface. What kind of words with the tone we need to take care we throw out to the users. So it's very important to understand what scenarios are we considering then we are talking about. Let's take, this was one of the examples from the tech world that I took. Second is very simple one. Say suppose I go ahead and say, Mom, I need a coffee. And what if I just go and say, I just need a cappuccino? Now, in this statement, that is the second one, the user's state of mind is being clearly reflected. The person really needs a coffee, not a nice to have, but want it quite quickly. You know, the just here is specifies it's quite urgent here. So just in the statement shows like it's a clear emphasis on what they need. What they need is the quantity is one, that is one, and the type of the drink also they have mentioned is cappuccino. So it's quite, a very clear directive where we as designers actually require to have these skills to take care of the voice formats while we are identifying the different scenarios of it. So this was the voice format which we should take care while we are considering the different scenarios. Now moving on to the framework of the UX part. So let's take an example of calculator and understand here. What does a calculator do? Actually, let's take a basic calculator, not go into the mathematical one, but a basic calculator. It performs operations, maybe addition, multiplication, subtraction. And on what, if you see a calculator, it has inbuilt digits are there already, digits and operations, which a user can come and input. Now that calculator remains same for you and for me as well. If I come and do an addition and you come and do a multiplication, that does not mean that particular calculator will not hold division and subtraction. It would not eliminate. So we need to take care of all the scenarios a particular application can serve. That is why we need to wear a different hats altogether. So over here, the operations that we need to perform, say addition of two numbers, would act as an intent. This is an intent which we need to take care in the framework voice. If we draw an analogy, operations is an intent. That is the job to be done, what user wants to do. Then second comes the slots. Slots is wherein it is trying to read or the corresponding intent. What I can say in layman's language is a variable part. It could be a number, it could be a date, it could be anything. It could be a film star. If you're talking about the films, it could be a film star, actress, something. Days, seasons, anything it could be. And then comes the third part, which is the utterances. Utterances as in to understand what exactly the user is saying to the intent. Say suppose if I say add two numbers, it is utilizing the intents and the slots. So if you see utterances, I say add two numbers, addition is something an intent, and slot is something two numbers, that is the first number and the second number. So in this way, this is the basic crux of the framework which a designer as well as the person who is going to create such type of a chatbot must have a clarity what exactly the framework constitutes. It's the intent, slots, and utterances. So this is one of the very basic example that I showed you here. Let's take another example, very simple one. Say suppose we are talking about eating the pizza. I go ahead and speak, I want to eat pizza, tell me places nearby. Now, had this conversation between you and me as a designers not happened, what would be the answer of this? Oh, there is two places nearby, you can go ahead and eat. No, but having the experience of voice UX now, what kind of tone, formats, components, I try to design it a bit further, saying, say, suppose, sure, giving it an affirmation to it instead of just answering the part. Sure, you want pizza for lunch or dinner, making it more interactive and personalized, more humankind, instead of just throwing out the answer. So it's like, yeah, sure, you want to have pizza for lunch or dinner. Now I would go and say, yeah, it's for dinner. Again, this chatbot is, again, I would not say chatbot, voice bot. There are several restaurants in the area who delivered pizza. What would you like to, I mean, would you like to have walk or a drive? It's again giving me the second level of hierarchy of questions. It's trying to interact with me further, a level further. So I say, no, it's a nice day, I would like to walk. Again, the voice bot is coming up and making sure, like, okay, Pizza Hut is 2 minutes walk from here, but if you want something cheaper for many people or bulk of people, it's a Domino's is 5 minutes drive. So I conclude here saying that, yeah, it's good to have, it's good to know, but I would like to go for Pizza Hut today. So in this entire conversation, what I did was I narrowed down the list to the very best options before recommending them. I tried to, put the crux of it, making voice site navigation more seamless. So here in this example, this is the intent, that is eating pizza. These are the utterances, what a user is going ahead and speaking about it. And this is the slot wherein it could be dinner, it could be like walking, driving. These are the slots which we have to take care of. So, what I did here was I was making a more user-oriented voice interaction, asking relevant follow-up questions, like how far do you want to go, or what would you like to have? Is it a lunch or a dinner? So it won't be, I agree, like being designers, it won't be simple, but it's very important that we are able to, prompt users with the right questions at the right time to elicit the appropriate responses from the users. So this was a basic overview of the framework, which actually contains the intent, slots, and utterances before we move on to anything else. So the last topic is about the challenges. What a voice UX these days is facing is for sure a privacy. You cannot go ahead and talk in a noisy area about something which is very confidential to you, maybe about the credit cards or debit cards details. It's not easy for you to, and it's not even highly recommended also for anybody to go out and speak loud. But I would say, with the help of artificial intelligence, there are speech recognition models and face recognition models that have been brought into picture, wherein if you have an application which has certain visuals, or if, say, suppose you are creating it for your mobile applications, you have a camera inbuilt in it. So there it can be a biometric thing that they have started inculcating such factors there as well for privacy, but yet I think it's still in progress. So this is one of the challenges. And second is the language support, which I think this is also at a different development age. In India, we almost speak so many native languages. So I think the voice services support a very limited number of languages as of now. So this was basically about the voice UX journey that I had learned in my career, and I wanted to share it with you all. So there is one demo. So there is a tool XD which helps you to even create such type of demos. I tried creating one, a very basic one. I'll try to show you how exactly it works. So I have created this in a very normal way. I'll try to show you. So I'll be hitting this, and the voice would recommend each and everything that is coming on the screen.
Welcome to Beach Island. What type of beach you want? Summer, windrow, happy?
Now to the next screen I'll go. I'll hit my submission to it. I would say summer. Summer. Summer.
Okay. Below are the summer beaches as per your request. Santiago Beach and Florida Beach.
So yeah, this was just a small demo which I thought of sharing with you guys. So I just wanted to highlight that XD tool is also trying to have the trigger action as your voice, and wherein you can go ahead and choose the voices that you want to have, what are the speech that you want to inculcate in your prototypes while you are creating such type of designs and presenting it to the client or your internal teams. So yeah, so this was pretty much about me. So thank you very much for being so supportive. Also, you can reach out to me with the social media channels. Mostly I'm active on LinkedIn. Yeah, so thank you so much. So I would like to open for questions, if any.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sanchita. So guys, we are open for any sort of questions you have related to Arco or Sanchita. So we'll first go with questions for Sanchita. Let me check the chat channel as well. Okay, Sanchita, you have a question. So from Venkatesh, how the internationalization works in Weiss UX?
So, hear me?
Yeah, you're audible. Go ahead. Hello.
Sanchita just dropped. I think she will join back.
Just wait, yeah.
Yes.
Meanwhile, I can pick up the answer. I'm sure Sanchita will give us a better answer when she's up here.
Sure.
In internationalization basically works in two ways. One is, of course, each speech recognition module is tuned to one type of language. You can change that language, but to make it understand, you have to speak in that language. If you speak in any other language, what you will get is basically, I don't understand what you're saying. Now, Google is trying something. Alexa is probably also trying. They're trying to do modules with two languages. Again, you have to mention which two languages. They don't do language recognition that well. I mean, if you give them a random sentence, it's actually very difficult to decide if you're both English and a Hindi speaker, and you ask what year was Ajnabi released in. Now the thing, if it is purely tuned to English, it will know that you made an English sentence and that Ajnabi thing was a noun that it needs to search for. But if it is tuned to both English and Hindi, now it recognizes Ajnabi as a Hindi word, and the rest of the sentence is actually English. It is super confused. So the more languages you add, the more confused and the more complex it gets. So right now, the best thing is two languages at most, but you have to specify which two. But it is still flaky. So internationalization support is best done one language at a time. Sanchita, you.
Hello. Yeah. I'm so sorry, guys. I got disconnected. Hello.
Yes, Sanchita.
Yeah, we can hear you, Sanchita.
Yeah. So, Sanchita, the question was how internationalization
I had a
works.
question.
Yes, please go ahead. Are there any questions? You can even put it in the chatbot. I can go ahead and take it up.
Yeah. So there were I think two questions. Ikas just dropped.
Okay.
One was the one I asked actually, how to do the testing of Weiss UX.
Yeah, so I think we need to get it more of a do or sort of an A/B testing while we are trying, say, suppose if we are creating the version 1 of it and try to send out to A/B testing is basically revealing out the different versions of an application to the different sort of audience. So from where you can get lot of that we can do in the agile process, say, suppose if we are following an agile process and having continuous sprint 1 and 2. So for respective sprints, we can go ahead and go out and release the fixed versions of it and seek out what users are trying to talk about it. If there is something there is a glitch, or there is something which we can add. So this is something which helped us while we were doing this part, the voice UX part especially.
I'll just add to it how you define or understand the dialect of a person who is using your voice app. Because when you do release the app for A/B testing or in market, at the time of development, we have very limited pool of voice samples that's going to interact with the app. But when it goes out, how you track down the negative parts or the unhappy parts where the bot is failing, the voice bot is failing, and then you improve on those parts.
Yeah, so what I was mentioning was drawing an analogy to the A/B testing. A/B testing is something which is releasing out in the market, but while we are in the development phase, we try to reach out to the different sectors of the people within the organization, sort of getting up with the the inputs from the people, what exactly we can do, how we can go ahead and talk about it. And also, like in our organizations, we are having a sort of demo for every releases, wherein we actually get exposed to sort of new scenarios or new things that we are taking up, or there are certain updates that we can inculcate in that. So it's within the organization before we release it out, to be specific, rather than be doing an A/B testing altogether when it's released out. Also, coming on to your second part, like how we are tracking those things, mostly either the feedback comments or probably tracking it through the analytics part, like how many people are trying to use that Google Analytics or something like that. Not very much pro in that, but yeah, trying to do with that process only.
I'm adding one supplementary thing to it. To what kind of a framework you use in terms of intent handling?
So no, I mean, I'm also very much pretty new to this thing. So no, as such framework I've been using as of now. Whatever the voice utterances and slots, this was the only framework which I started off when I was working here, and created a JSON out of it and directly handled it to the developers.
Okay.
Cool. So Sanchita, you have some more questions. One from Girish. He says that in the demo you showcased giving visual clues. So is there also available products like personal assistant on my phone? But when I'm dealing with the Google Mini or an Alexa, there is no visual clue. So how can we get it there?
So I'm not sure about Google Mini, but for Alexa, I'm sure there is a Alexa developer console wherein you have an option for visuals as well. You can go here, and they have provided a very beautiful portal for designers, also having all the containers, components there, wherein you can go ahead and create those. So probably I can share the link over here in some time. After this, maybe I can share it with you guys, and you can put it out in the portal where you go ahead and see these portals where the visuals are there.
Yeah, Sanjita, you could share the same which you're mentioning in the Discord server, so that we have
Sure.
a lot many people there. So probably more will be helpful with that. Okay, let's go with the next question, Prateek. Anup, just a second. We'll take this question and then we'll ask you. So this is from Prateek. Regarding privacy, do you guys use speaker recognition like in Siri or Alexa, so an unauthorized access doesn't take place? And if yes, which library you would prefer? Either Kaldi versus VoicerX. Sorry, my pronunciation. Okay, Sanchita, you on it?
So I'm also pretty new to this, so I'm so sorry. I would not like to go ahead and give something wrong response to this. So even I'm not aware of this part. Probably I can have a discussion or maybe some research around it and come up with it. I'm so sorry for that.
Give you a bit of
Anup, you can go ahead
on it. So whenever you are interacting with Siri and Alexa, so if you they both had a problem with the privacy settings. So if you remember a couple of years back, Alexa got turned on in one couple
Yeah.
only, and that it completely heard their conversation, recorded the entire conversation, and somewhere on that conversation, it picked up to one contact name out of their contact book and sent out that entire conversation to that particular person. So this particular field of voice commanding tools are right now evolving on the privacy area. Alexa is getting evolved and getting there. Siri is already somewhat there, but Siri's pool of market is pretty much restricted, and as well as with Alexa. But Google Mini is also having that privacy issues at a larger scale. Both have been indicted and facing legal issues in a US court of law, and as well as in Europe. On the other part of these particular tools, voice tools, they are also facing a dialect issue as well. So if you are speaking in terms of, let's say, Irish English, Alexa will not wake up. But if you try to plain English, British English, Alexa will wake up. So there are a few things where these voice particular things are getting there in terms of privacy. As such, there is no library. It completely depends upon which tool you are using, and if it is inbuilt to your app, the app permissions define your privacy.
Yeah,
Great.
that's correct.
Thank you, Anu, for
Also,
yeah. Go ahead.
also
Sorry.
adding on to Anoop's part, like for privacy, what I have been looking for as a workaround was taking facial recognition into picture, like not talking about specifically about Alexa or Siri, but any of other say financial websites who have fintech companies who have come up with such type of voice UX part. So therein they are making use of facial recognition to unlock few things, rather than, so if you have during your onboarding, if you have registered some facial expression, the same thing they are going to unlock it. So this facial and speech, there is an and condition between the two, while the privacy was being considered, especially for fintech companies. That is one of my observation that I heard.
Great. Thank you, Anu, for the great insights about it.
Yeah,
Probably
really
we
helpful.
have some more questions. So
Mhm.
Prateek gives a follow-up question. What would be the prerequisite for getting started with Alexa DevTools as a
Yeah,
developer?
yeah. So I think Alexa developer tool, you can directly go. It's a website, Amazon only, developer.amazon.com. Therein you get a portal wherein you can start with the altogether. The steps are mentioned. You can go ahead and form an interaction model. You can go and build that model. You can host that model. For hosting, you actually need AWS Lambda or your own HTTPS, I mean, own server wherein you can go ahead and host. AWS Lambda is, I think, a paid version. So you need to have either that or you need to create it on your own. Post that, it's a free portal. It just requires you AWS for your hosting your website or your voice application. You need a server for that, and therein you can go ahead and test as well. So you can just go to your portal. I will just post it here, developer.amazon.com, and you can check there once. You
Cool.
can build your
Okay,
mod.
I have one question related to AWS only. So,
Mhm.
what if I don't want to use AWS? Is there any option if I can integrate any third-party cloud service as well? Like, for example, if I want to go with Azure services or maybe
No,
Google Cloud.
actually,
No.
no.
So you
Damn,
cannot.
that's like a monopoly here.
Yeah, it's always Google Mini has their own GCP cloud. Alexa goes with their own AWS.
That's the fight.
Microsoft is all.
No, I think you can do it. So if you, because all of this in platforms, like if you configure Google Cloud, sorry, if you configure Google Assistant, it requires only a web intent URL where the request will be sent. So the processing part, which the Lambda does, can be done on AWS also. So it's because think of it like if you're creating an application for Google Cloud or like Google Assistant and for the Amazon platform, and your main application is designed on Azure, your web application. So you can't just buy three application systems, like three different clouds and deploy your application.
Exactly.
You can deploy it on as per your choice. So if you are
if you already have a Amazon application like Amazon Alexa application, which does all your intent work, so you can design that same application, keep the same application code and running on AWS, and redirect your request coming in from Google Assistant to the AWS application. That's a better way, and that's how companies work. It's very hard to maintain 3 different cloud providers just to manage out applications for in this case.
Just to add to it, your backend working, you can host anywhere you want. But when it comes to primary skills of Alexa or Google Mini or anything that you want to use, there you have to go with the particular provider only. So anything which is required, any computation at a backend, you can host anything anywhere you want. So just to give you an example, I'm using Dialogflow, which is Google product. So I'm integrated that entire Dialogflow with GCP account into an AWS console backend application. So you can go crisscross, but the basic skill set that you want, you have to use it.
The basic NLP thing.
The provider.
Yeah, the NLP thing can be, that's a tricky thing.
Yeah.
So you have to
for Alexa, if you want to use a complete end-to-end Alexa feel, I would probably tell you that use Alexa along with Lex. Lex is Amazon's own intent management system. So with Alexa, Lex, and your Lambda, you can build your chatbot or voice bot you want.
Oh yeah.
Great.
So the ultimate aim of using these products by Amazon or Google is that we don't have to implement any kind of machine learning model from scratch. It's a pre-baked code that they have already developed, and on top of that we can build our own skills, right?
Machine learning would not be there, because if you are using it on kind of a conversational flow, defined conversational flow, in that machine learning would not come into a picture. But if you are if you want to use anything related to machine learning and make your bot self-learn, then you need to use third-party or their own provided services where machine learning will take part, and it's pretty costly as well. So machine learning will take part, and then it will understand and try to train the entire intents wherever you have described and developed your happy chat and unhappy chats.
But there are open source solutions for this as well, right?
Yeah, there are Rasa is there, which is open source solution. There is PHP's Botman, which has been abandoned from 2017, but it's there. So Rasa is pretty popular these days. It's based on Python, and people are exploring that particular framework and engine to host the intents or the conversational flows along with machine learning part to it.
Hi, I would like to just do a time check here. We have just 10 minutes. So if we have more questions for Sanchita, let's take them, or either we move to Discord. And because then you can take the call, we can wrap up, and the people who want to just continue the discussion after that, they can stay back.
Yeah, cool. So we have one last question, I guess. So it's from Neha. Sanchita, for you, what would be the accessibility for Weiss UX? How can we handle it?
Yeah, so for accessibility part, mostly we take care of, the mic part, the guide. There are certain guidelines which we follow, but it's still in the, I think it's still in the, pilot phase, wherein we are taking care of like the voice part, the voice, say suppose if the chatbot is in the process of handling only certain types of languages and certain types of voice, it won't be able to catch few things which is not inbuilt in the model. So with respect to accessibility, it's still in the pilot phase.
Okay, great.
Okay, thank you. Because I'm stopping the recording, and you can close the session then.
Yeah, just a second here. Probably the last point from my end.
Also,
I'm just sharing the GitHub link. And this is where you can submit your GitHub issues for a talk, a code lab session, or anything you want to present onto our portal, JSLovers. So we'll give you a date. We'll first review your content, and then we'll give you a date for our upcoming webinar. So that would be the process if you are willing to share your knowledge with the audience out there. So yeah, Sanchita, you had something?
Yeah, actually just wanted to add that part about the accessibility thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Okay. So like it should be as I mentioned, it's in the pilot phase. Few things like you can have for the volume part, wherein we can check the speech interactions, having different multi-model, maybe having a cognitive part, wherein checking the time efficient things. We can check how exactly it is. I mean, for an invisible interface, it does not matter, but having a voice plus the display, there we need to take care of the cognitive part as well, how we can navigate further. So two things, like cognitive is for both visual and voice including, and if it's a invisible interface, it's difficult, like allowing the volume control or maybe a speech multimodal. But still, I think this is still in the pilot phase right now.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Sanchita, Arko, and Nisha, for all your help and support with question and answers and your sessions. So probably this will be a closing remark.